In this video I will show the European turtle strategy. When using this strategy you make the alliance with all other players and basically don't guard your borders at all. You just put your troops into one or two big armies inside Europe and let other players fight each other when staying neutral. Nobody wants to unleash your biggest army because they know that it can be used against them. But they are your allies, so they are not supposed to invade you anyways, but in case if they still will, then you will only lose when troops sent to your borders aren't guarded, so that isn't going to hurt you much at all. When you're using this strategy you mostly put your troops to one big army inside Europe. You let your opponents attack each other, and when you see that you have more troops than all of them combined, then you just fortify your army from the blocked place out, and take all of them out in a single turn. This strategy can work quite well with less experienced public lobby players who are not really aware of the turtling strategies, who try to expand themselves too much, at the same time bringing the attention to themselves just to end up destroying each other because nobody wants to let someone get way too many troops. So when using this strategy you just need to hope that others will be willing to accept your alliance requests, so you could stay neutral when not even guarding your borders but still getting bonus troops. And if you're going to use this strategy, then it can be quite good to make the alliances with others in the beginning of the game. It will help you to see whether you would be able to use this strategy or not, as if nobody wants to make the alliance with you, then obviously you're going to get invaded into unguarded Europe. Don't matter whether you threat others or not, so unless these players are very passive and afraid of getting into the conflicts. This is another Risk Global Domination game with fixed cards on classic Risk map. Settings, alliances on, balance blitz dice rolls in 60 seconds per turn. I'm the green player in this game and I'm playing with another 3 players in a public lobbies game. Judging by their first moves, I would say that the yellow player is the least experienced player over here. At first he wanted to fight for Australia with the red player when making a lot of unfavorable blitz rolls just to end up destroying a lot of his troops. And then obviously he cleared out South America for the black player. The black player had so many troops around South America, so by wiping out my troops from the continent, the yellow player just made the job way easier for black. But if the yellow player had just added his troops into South America without clearing out my troops, then the black player probably would have blitzed his 5 troops army anyways. So don't go for continents which clearly belong to other players, and instead of considering fighting for them just go for the one which nobody goes for, or if you cannot go for any continent, then just put your troops to one big army until you get the opportunity. Don't be too fast of getting continents though, as otherwise you can just totally destroy yourself to potentially get eliminated soon. So when you consider capturing a continent, see if after capturing a continent you would be able to successfully guard it, or if it's a continent with a lot of borders, see if you still had a bigger army which would be big enough to discourage others invading you into your not really guarded continent. So as you can see I'm not in a rush of capturing Europe. After clearing out other players' troops I don't want to end up being too weak that my opponents would feel safe to invade me knowing that I wouldn't be able to retaliate. Even though the red and black players are my allies, they wouldn't hesitate to destroy me after me becoming weak by them seeing that I wouldn't be any threat for them no matter what. Usually before capturing either Europe or North America I like to trade in my first set, so unless if I see that I can capture them very easily. But usually there are a lot of other players' troops into these continents, so instead of crushing them and wasting my troops, I just let these players to move them out. I build a big army into the continent I want to go for, so these players understand that I want to go for it, so if they don't move their troops out, then they will just simply be crushed. So as you can see my opponents already either moved their troops out or used them in attacking territories in Europe. So now I will be able to capture Europe without making myself too weak. So even if I get invaded into it, differently than yellow I won't be an easy target to get eliminated from the game like it happened with the yellow player who was in a very big rush to get any continent as soon as possible. It was hard for both of us to get any continents, but we took different approaches on how to handle that, and that led us to different results. one of us is surviving and is as decent opponent as others, while another one is barely alive and getting eliminated soon, especially when still continuing to capture random territories and hoping to hold a big continent when not having any bigger armies at all, or even probably any strong alliances or actually any alliances as well. And if he had had any set, then he should have definitely traded it in. It was the last hope for him to do something. As now it's clear that the black player is going to take him out, he will not only not lose any troops when taking the territories which are made of ones, but additionally he will get 5 extra cards to get some extra troops. And to be honest, I'm really glad that the black player took the yellow player out. First of all, because there will be one opponent fewer in the game. Second of all, the yellow player was putting up pressure on black by fortifying 5 troops next to him, so probably the yellow player would have been the enemies with black, and that would have been quite bad with the red player going for Asia, meaning that I would have been potentially forced to intervene and attack red instead of just staying neutral in Europe, so the red player wouldn't become too strong while 2 other enemies are in the conflict. And finally, with the red player capturing Asia, the black player is probably going to capture North America, and that will just balance the things out. I will just be able to continue turtling without being afraid of one of them becoming too strong. Back then Europe looked like a big continent with them having 2 troop continents each. But now after the red player additionally capturing Asia, and the black player North America, Europe doesn't look as threatening as it might have been even without guarded borders, at all. Now their biggest attention will be towards each other. And even though I'm the player who gets the least amount of troops, I still like my situation the most, as sooner or later one of them will invade each other into their big continents, and then another player getting mad will do the same. Then they will be attacking each other like crazy, and as soon as I see that I have more troops than both of them combined, I will just take both of them out. So I just need to stay patient and wait till there is a conflict between them will start going on. They might stay passive for a while, but sooner or later they will have to attack each other. So I don't even worry if they end up being quite stronger comparing to me. Eventually they will just crush these surplus troops into each other, and I will be as strong as them, and then if they still keep attacking each other a lot, then I could end up being even stronger. So it really depends whether they will be smart enough to not weaken themselves too much that I would be quite stronger, or not. So as you can see, I'm just casually keep using the European turtle strategy. I just keep putting my troops inside Europe without really guarding my borders, so my opponents wouldn't be irritated by it. My big army should discourage them from invading me, because they know that it can be used against them, and probably nobody of them would like that I will start attacking them with it, as whichever person would get into conflict with me, he would have the disadvantage comparing to the another one. Well, the red player unexpectedly invaded me. And I mean that's not really big of an issue to me. Even if I cannot hold Europe, it will be fine. The most important thing that both of my opponents would be able to balance each other out the troops wise. So whether I'm with Europe or without it, I just still can casually turtle by putting my troops to one big army and wait till they start fighting each other. I cannot really specifically attack one of them, as then the player who didn't get invaded would be having an advantage. As if the invaded player gets mad and only starts paying the attention to me leaving another player alone, then that another player with still holding big continents could end up having more troops than both of us combined. As public lobby players very often go by the emotions, rather than looking to the troops counter to make sure that the balance of the game would be sustained. And if for some reasons they get very mad on you, then they can even consider suiciding, even though the game isn't being lost for them with every player still having chances to win. But usually public lobby players don't have the mindset of always trying to win no matter how bad the situation got for you. As long as there are still chances to fight for the first place, they either get too emotional and don't care whether they win anymore as long as they bring that player with themselves down as well, or especially doing that for the ranking purposes, as they don't want to risk of getting the third place and losing ranking points, when they can just suicide on the third player to be safe getting the ranking points by finishing in the second place. Well, sometimes very inexperienced players will not realize that they're suiciding, or sometimes more experienced players will mess up as well. But usually that's not the case. Mostly people will get fed up with the game or with another person, and suicide on purpose, whether because they get too emotional, or because of the ranking purposes to be guaranteed getting ranking points. And as long as losing places still gets rewarded, I think the issue won't go away, or at least stays as much as a big issue as it is now. And awesome, even though the black player went through me to invade red, the red player still got finally invaded by him. And that's amazing, one of the red player's armies has even got crushed. That probably made the red player mad, so he should be attacking the black player as well. And if the red player is not smart enough, then he will crush one of the black player's armies, potentially making me have as many troops as both of them combined, or at least getting very close to that, so he would rather be very careful to not end up destroying the black player more than he needs to. And okay, he stopped. Actually, I think it was smart for the black player to leave his army in Kamchatka rather than fortifying it back to either Brazil or North Africa, as the red player wanting to invade black probably would have gone through one of his guarded borders, and in doing so, potentially breaking the balance of the game. So I think the black player made a very safe decision here. Anyways, instead of putting my army back inside of Europe, I decided to leave it on one of the borders. So in case the black and red players attack each other too much, then I will be immediately ready to take them out. Also, it would probably discourage them to potentially invade me by seeing that my big army is unleashed and I could really use it against them in case I get bothered. Back then I was invaded into Europe while I was putting my troops into the middle of it, and the players saw that I just recaptured it, making my army being blocked again, staying very passive. So I'm wondering to see if they dared to invade me as well while biggest army is unleashed. Well, I'm not sure actually if it's a great decision, even though they could feel more intimidated by me. At the same time they might be discouraged to attacking each other as much as well by being afraid that I could take over the advantage. But so far it seems they still keep attacking each other a lot, so for now I think I will leave my army on my border. As I have a very interesting strategy in mind, which I can pull off when they become quite weaker, either that or if their armies become blocked to accessing certain points. And that strategy is to additionally take over Africa, so with already having Europe, I will only have to guard 4 borders, putting the most troops to the border or borders where their armies would be accessible to attack. So it would be so great that the red player would waste some more troops attacking black with his Australian army, and then fortifying it back to Siam, which would become blocked after red using his army. Anyways, what I do now is kinda pretend to stick in alliance with red. I let him hold multiple continents when he takes them from black, but that doesn't matter for me at all because the black player invades them anyway. So all I do is just capturing some random territories of black. The black player then just recaptures his continents which were invaded by red, and the red player is forced to do all the dirty work by himself by invading black's continents himself at the same time, probably making the black player mad. Well, this time black didn't get invaded, so let's see what happens. I've just attacked some territories of the black player, while hoping that the red player will be dumb to do the dirty work for me by potentially crushing some of the black player's armies. And oh no guys, it seems the black player isn't afraid anymore to attack me as well. That's kinda bad. Well, now I will definitely have to invade him in case the red player doesn't. It would be bad to let another player become the new strongest player when I could easily prevent that from happening. And to be honest, I think it was a mistake for me to not invade the black player last turn when the red player didn't as well. What I mean is that I was quite stronger than them. Combined they only had 33 troops more than me, and by crushing some of the black player's armies, I could have potentially gotten to the point when I would have the same number of troops as both of them combined if getting good blitz rolls. In any case, even if not getting good blitz rolls, I would have been able to stay as quite stronger player. But now since I didn't attack black back then, my superior advantage has gone, and even though I'm still the strongest, I'm getting very close to their troop level. And by seeing that, I just decided to get back to the turtling strats. This time I decided to properly guard so the black player couldn't invade me. Or if he still wanted to invade them, then he would go through my weakest 3 troops border at the same time invading red to Africa and making him mad. Also, to leave a lot of troops in the middle of Europe was not necessary or efficient at all, but what I think is that multiple smaller armies are going to intimidate them less than one huge army, so they might be attacking each other quite more. Also, I just didn't want to put the whole army to Iceland and not freak him out by him potentially thinking that I want to take him out, in result him not attacking the red player anymore. So I think it's fine that I will have some of my troops blocked for now. Also, not sure what was the thought behind the black player's idea to fortify his army directly to the red player's biggest army, but I noticed that a lot of times players do that in the public lobbies when they want to suicide. So not sure yet, but it seems the game can be possibly over now. But we will actually going to see what the black player is going to do. Well, the red player decided to suicide on him by himself. So now we will never know whether the black player would have suicided or not, but I think it would have been very possible. Well, in any case, the game is over now. I won. To be able to take them out in a single turn and not waste any time, I'm capturing a lot of territories of red before taking the black player out. Anyways, this is why I don't enjoy playing in public lobbies as much. It seems the most fixed card games end up by one player suiciding into another one, giving you easy win, or differently, suiciding on you making another player easily win. And with so many suicidal players, you're just encouraged to play passively.